The rain started just as Joanna Gallagher realized she had forgotten the birthday cake in her car, and she knew with absolute certainty that this party was about to become a disaster. Her grandmother's 85th birthday celebration was in full swing inside the community center, filled with relatives Joanna barely recognized, and several she wished she didn't. The entire Gallagher clan had descended upon the small town of Riverside for this momentous occasion, and Joanna had spent the last 3 hours being interrogated about her non-existent love life by aunts who seemed to think being 27 and single was some kind of terminal diagnosis. She pushed through the glass doors and sprinted toward her car, heels clicking against wet pavement. The parking lot was packed, forcing her to park near the back entrance by the kitchen. As she fumbled with her keys, the sky opened up completely, drenching her floral dress within seconds. "Perfect," she muttered, finally popping the trunk. The cake sat there, miraculously intact despite her aggressive driving. She grabbed the pink box and turned around too quickly, colliding with what felt like a brick wall. Except brick walls didn't have arms that reached out to steady you, and they definitely didn't smell like expensive cologne mixed with rain. "Whoa, careful," a deep voice said above her head. Joanna looked up into the bluest eyes she had ever seen. The man was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair plastered to his forehead from the rain. He wore jeans and a simple black button-down that clung to broad shoulders, looking both casual and somehow completely put together despite being soaked. "Sorry, I didn't see you," she said, gripping the cake box tighter. Water droplets ran down her face and she could feel her carefully applied mascara starting to migrate south. "My fault. I was trying to make a run for it." He had a slight smile on his face, the kind that suggested he found the whole situation amusing rather than annoying. "You heading to the birthday party?" "Yeah, it's my grandmother's 85th. You, same party. I'm Marcus Donovan." The name didn't ring any bells, but with a family as large and sprawling as the Gallaghers, there were always distant relatives she had never met. "Joanna Gallagher. Nice to meet you, even if the circumstances are a bit wet. Could be worse. At least you've got the cake," he gestured to the box. "That looks important. It's the only thing keeping me from being completely disowned. I was supposed to pick it up hours ago, but work ran late and then traffic was insane." "What do you do?" "I'm an architect. Small firm downtown. We're working on a proposal for a new public library, and the deadline is Monday. So naturally, everything is chaos." She realized she was rambling, something she did when she was nervous, and there was something about this man that made her very nervous in a way she couldn't quite identify. "Architecture, that's impressive. Do you like it?" "I love it. There's something about creating spaces where people will live their lives, making something beautiful and functional at the same time." She paused. "Sorry, I tend to get carried away." "Don't apologize. It's refreshing to hear someone talk about their work with actual passion." His smile widened slightly. "Most people just complain about their jobs." They stood there in the rain for another moment, and Joanna became acutely aware that they were both getting completely soaked. "We should probably get inside before we catch pneumonia." "Probably a good idea." Marcus opened the door for her, and they walked into the warm, dry interior together. The sounds of the party hit them immediately: laughter, music, the clatter of dishes. Joanna could see her grandmother holding court at the center table, surrounded by well-wishers. "I need to get this to the kitchen," Joanna said, lifting the cake box slightly. "I'll walk with you. I have no idea where anything is." They navigated through the crowd, and Joanna caught several curious glances from various family members. Her cousin Rebecca actually raised her eyebrows and mouthed, "Who is that?" as they passed. Joanna ignored her. The kitchen was a flurry of activity, with caterers moving efficiently around the space. Joanna found a spot on the counter for the cake and carefully opened the box to check for damage. Miraculously, it looked perfect white frosting with delicate pink roses and "Happy 85th Birthday Alina" written in elegant script. "It survived," Marcus observed from beside her. "Thank God. I don't think I could have handled being the granddaughter who ruined Grandma's birthday." "I'm sure she would have forgiven you. You don't know Grandma Alina. She's sweet as pie 99% of the time, but mess up something important and you'll hear about it for the next decade." Marcus laughed, a genuine sound that made something warm unfold in Joanna's chest. "I'll keep that in mind." Before she could respond, her Aunt Patricia appeared in the doorway, eyes zeroing in on them with the precision of a heat-seeking missile. "Joanna, there you are. We've been looking everywhere for you, and I see you've met Marcus." "We ran into each other in the parking lot," Joanna explained. Patricia's face lit up with a smile that Joanna recognized immediately. It was her matchmaking smile, the one she wore whenever she thought she had found a suitable romantic prospect for one of her nieces or nephews. "How wonderful." "Marcus, have you met everyone yet?" "Not yet. I actually just arrived." "Well, come along, both of you. Alina has been asking for you, Joanna. And Marcus, I'm sure she'll be delighted to see you again." "Again." Joanna filed that away as they followed Patricia back into the main room. Her aunt led them directly to the center table, where Alina Gallagher sat like a queen surveying her kingdom. Despite her age, Joanna's grandmother was sharp as ever, her eyes bright with intelligence and her white hair perfectly coiffed. "Grandma, the cake is safe and sound," Joanna announced, leaning down to kiss her grandmother's papery cheek. "I never doubted you, sweetheart, though you're absolutely drenched. Was the rain that bad?" It came out of nowhere. "And I see you found Marcus." Alina's eyes moved between them with obvious interest. "How lovely." "We met in the parking lot," Joanna repeated, starting to feel like a broken record. "Marcus, dear, it's been far too long since I've seen you. How is your grandmother?" "She's doing well, Mrs. Gallagher. She sends her regards and apologizes for not being able to make it. Her arthritis has been acting up." "Oh, I completely understand. Please give Dorothy my love and tell her I'll call next week." Alina patted the empty chair beside her. Sit, both of you." "Joanna, get yourself something to drink before you catch cold." Joanna found herself seated next to Marcus, acutely aware of how close they were in the crowded seating arrangement. Someone handed her a glass of wine and she took a grateful sip, trying to piece together how Marcus knew her grandmother. "So, Marcus," her Uncle Thomas said from across the table, "how's the business world treating you? Still doing that corporate thing?" "It's going well. Keeping busy." "Marcus is far too modest," Alina interjected. "He's a CEO, Donovan Industries. They do manufacturing and distribution across the country." Joanna nearly choked on her wine. CEO. She had assumed he was some distant cousin or family friend, not the head of a company. She tried to remember if she had heard of Donovan Industries and came up blank. "It's not as impressive as it sounds," Marcus said, looking slightly uncomfortable with the attention. "We make industrial equipment. Boring stuff, really." "Don't listen to him," Patricia added. "The company has been featured in Fortune magazine. Twice." Marcus shifted in his seat, clearly wanting the subject changed. "I'd much rather hear about the birthday girl. 85 years. That's quite an achievement, Mrs. Gallagher." Alina was happy to oblige, launching into a story about her youth that Joanna had heard a dozen times but never tired of. As her grandmother talked, Joanna found herself sneaking glances at Marcus. He listened attentively, asking questions at the right moments, genuinely engaged. There was something grounded about him, despite his apparent success. He didn't carry himself with the arrogance she had come to associate with wealthy businessmen. The evening progressed with food, toasts, and the cutting of the cake Joanna had risked life and limb to deliver. Through it all, she found herself constantly near Marcus, drawn into conversations with him by various family members who seemed determined to push them together. It was mortifying, but Marcus handled it all with good humor, never making her feel uncomfortable about the obvious matchmaking attempts. "Your family is persistent," he said quietly during a lull in the festivities. They had ended up on the periphery of the room, watching as Alina danced with Joanna's father. "That's one word for it. I'm really sorry about all this. They mean well, but subtlety isn't their strong suit." "It's fine. Actually, it's kind of nice. My family is much smaller and a lot more reserved. This is lively. Chaotic is more like it. Chaotic can be good." He turned to look at her directly. "For what it's worth, I'm glad I got rained on in that parking lot." Joanna felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the wine. Yeah, you're easy to talk to, and you haven't asked me a single question about quarterly earnings or market projections, which is a refreshing change of pace." "I wouldn't even know what questions to ask about that stuff. Architecture and business don't overlap much." "They do more than you'd think. Buildings need purpose. Companies need structure. It's all about creating something functional that can stand the test of time." She smiled at that. "I never thought about it that way." Before their conversation could continue, Rebecca appeared at Joanna's elbow, slightly tipsy and completely devoid of boundaries. "Joanna, Mom wants to get a family photo, all the grandkids. Right now." "Yes, right now, come on." Rebecca grabbed her arm and started pulling. Joanna shot Marcus an apologetic look. "Go. I'll be here." The family photo turned into family photos, plural, as various aunts and uncles insisted on different combinations and groupings. By the time Joanna escaped, nearly 30 minutes had passed. She scanned the room for Marcus but couldn't spot him anywhere. Her stomach sank with disappointment that felt disproportionate for someone she had just met, looking for someone. Her father, Richard, appeared beside her with a knowing smile, just seeing who's still around. "If you're looking for the Donovan boy, he stepped outside to take a call, business emergency or something." "I wasn't looking for anyone specifically," Joanna lied. Her father chuckled. "Sure you weren't. He seems like a good guy. Alina speaks very highly of him and his family. Apparently his grandmother and yours have been friends for decades. How have I never heard of him before? Different social circles, I imagine. Plus, he's been busy building his empire. Your grandmother mentioned he took over the family business when he was only 25. Turned it around completely. The company was struggling, and now it's worth billions." Billions. Joanna let that sink in. She had been casually chatting with a billionaire in a parking lot, treating him like any other guy. The realization should have made her feel intimidated, but instead it just made her curious. He had seemed so normal, so genuine. "I'm going to get some air," she said, handing her father her empty wine glass. "I'm sure it has nothing to do with a certain CEO being outside." "Dad." "I'm just saying, it's nice to see you interested in someone. You work too hard, Joanna. You deserve some fun." She escaped before he could continue the lecture she had heard variations of for the past year. Ever since her last relationship had ended badly, with her ex-boyfriend admitting he felt intimidated by her career success, Joanna had thrown herself into work. It was easier than dealing with dating, with the constant worry that any man she met would either want to compete with her or expect her to dim her own light. The air outside was cool and fresh after the rain, the parking lot glistening under the streetlights. She spotted Marcus near the edge of the lot, phone pressed to his ear. His posture was tense, shoulders tight as he listened to whoever was on the other end. "I understand, but that's not my decision to make unilaterally," he was saying. "Call Henderson and get his input. If he agrees, then move forward, but I want everything documented." He paused. "No, I'm not available tomorrow. It's Sunday. Whatever it is can wait until Monday morning." There was another pause, longer this time. Joanna debated whether she should retreat back inside, but he turned and saw her, his expression softening immediately. "I have to go. We'll discuss this Monday. Goodbye." He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. "Sorry about that. Crisis at the factory in Ohio. Everything okay?" "It will be. One of the machines broke down, and my production manager was panicking. Apparently, I'm the only person who can solve problems." He ran a hand through his hair, which had dried into slightly messy waves. "It's one of the downsides of being in charge. People forget that you're human and might want a day off occasionally." "That sounds exhausting." "It can be, but it's also rewarding. I get to make decisions that affect thousands of employees and their families. That's not something I take lightly." He moved closer to her. "But right now, I don't want to think about work. Tell me something about you that has nothing to do with architecture." The request caught her off guard. "Like what?" "Anything. Hobbies, weird talents, irrational fears. I want to know what makes Joanna Gallagher tick." She thought for a moment. "I collect vintage postcards. The old ones from the 40s and 50s, especially ones with buildings or landmarks on them. There's something romantic about them, these little snapshots of places that might not even exist anymore." "That fits. The architect who loves buildings from the past." "What about you? What does Marcus Donovan do when he's not running a billion-dollar company?" "I sail. There's a marina about an hour from here, and I keep a boat there. Nothing fancy, just a 30-footer. When things get overwhelming, I take it out on the lake and disconnect from everything." "That sounds peaceful." "It is. You should come sometime." The invitation hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Joanna knew this was a decision point. She could deflect, keep things casual, protect herself from potential disappointment, or she could take a chance. "I'd like that," she said quietly. Marcus's smile was genuine and warm. "Yeah. Yeah." They stood there in the cool evening air, the sounds of the party muffled behind them, and Joanna felt something shift inside her chest. It was too soon to call it anything specific, but there was definitely something happening, some connection that felt both exciting and terrifying. "We should probably get back inside before your family sends out a search party," Marcus said, though he made no move to leave. "They're probably already planning our wedding." "Would that be so terrible?" Her heart skipped. "You don't waste time, do you?" "I've learned that life's too short to play games. When you meet someone interesting, you pursue it, see where it goes." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne again. "And you're definitely interesting, Joanna Gallagher." Before she could formulate a response that didn't sound completely idiotic, the door to the community center burst open and Rebecca stumbled out, followed by two of Joanna's younger cousins. "There you are," Rebecca called out. "Grandma's getting ready to leave. She wants to say goodbye to everyone." The spell broken, Joanna and Marcus headed back inside. The party was winding down, guests gathering coats and saying their farewells. Alina sat in her chair, looking tired but happy, accepting hugs and kisses from her extensive family. When it was Joanna's turn, her grandmother pulled her close and whispered in her ear, "I like him, sweetheart. He's got kind eyes and a good heart. Don't let this one slip away. Grandma, we just met. I met your grandfather at a party and knew within an hour that I was going to marry him. Sometimes you just know." Alina pulled back and patted Joanna's cheek. "Trust your instincts." After Alina left with Patricia and Thomas, the party broke up quickly. Joanna helped with cleanup, loading dishes into her car to return to various relatives the next day. Marcus pitched in without being asked, carrying boxes and folding tables like he had done it 100 times before. "You don't have to help," Joanna told him as they worked together to stack chairs. "I know, I want to." By the time they finished, it was nearly 11 and the parking lot was almost empty. Joanna walked to her car with Marcus beside her, neither of them in a hurry despite the late hour. "So," Marcus said, leaning against her car, "can I see you again? Officially, I mean. Not just running into each other at family events." "Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Donovan?" "I am, Miss Gallagher. Dinner, maybe, or sailing if you're feeling adventurous." Joanna pulled out her phone. "Give me your number." They exchanged numbers, and Joanna felt a flutter of anticipation as she saved his contact information. This was crazy. She had just met this man, and she was already imagining what their first date would be like, whether he would kiss her goodnight, what it would feel like if he did. "I'm free next Saturday," she said. "The library proposal will be submitted by then so I can actually relax. Saturday it is. I'll pick you up at 7. That works. Fair warning, though my address will probably be obtained through the family grapevine within 24 hours of you asking for it, so you might as well get it directly from me," he laughed. "Your family really is something else. They grow on you like mold." Charming analogy. They said goodnight, and Joanna drove home with a smile she couldn't suppress. Her small apartment felt empty when she arrived, but in a good way, like it was waiting for something new to fill it. She got ready for bed, replaying the evening in her mind, the collision in the rain, the easy conversation, the way Marcus looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Her phone buzzed just as she was climbing into bed. Marcus. Made it home. Still thinking about that parking lot collision. "Best accident I've ever had, Joanna. Dramatic much. You barely stumbled, Marcus. I was being poetic. Let me have my moment. Joanna, fine. It was a pretty great collision, Marcus. Get some sleep. Dream of vintage postcards and architectural marvels. Joanna, you too. Dream of quarterly earnings and factory machines, Marcus. Harsh. Good night, Joanna. Joanna. Good night, Marcus." She fell asleep with her phone in her hand, already counting down the days until Saturday. The week that followed was chaos. The library proposal consumed every waking hour, with Joanna practically living at her office. Her firm's senior partner, Gerald Stevens, was a perfectionist who demanded excellence, and the competition for this contract was fierce. 3 other firms were bidding, and everyone knew that landing this project could make or break their small company. Joanna barely had time to think about Marcus, though he texted her every morning with a simple good morning and every night with an equally simple sleep well. The consistency of it was oddly comforting, a small constant in the midst of her professional storm. On Thursday, she worked until 2 in the morning, finalizing renderings and making sure every specification was perfect. When she finally stumbled home, exhausted and running on nothing but coffee and determination, she found a package waiting outside her door. Inside was a vintage postcard, dated 1952, featuring a beautiful Art Deco building in downtown Chicago. The note attached read, "Saw this and thought of you. Hang in there. The weekend is almost here. Joanna held the postcard carefully, tracing the building's elegant lines with her finger. The gesture was thoughtful in a way that made her chest ache. He had been paying attention, remembered a small detail she had shared about herself, taken the time to find something meaningful. She texted him immediately. "Joanna, you found a postcard. How, Marcus? I have my ways. Do you like it, Joanna? I love it. Thank you. This was incredibly sweet." Marcus, Sweet enough to guarantee a second date before we've even had the first one, Joanna. Don't push your luck, Donovan. Marcus, worth a shot. Now go to sleep. You've been working too hard. She wanted to argue, but she was too tired. Instead, she carefully placed the postcard on her nightstand where she could see it and fell into bed, asleep within minutes. Friday came and went in a blur of final checks and submission deadlines. When they finally uploaded the proposal at 4 in the afternoon, the entire office erupted in cheers. Gerald bought champagne, and they spent the rest of the day celebrating and decompressing. "You did excellent work, Joanna," Gerald told her as the party wound down. "Really exceptional. If we land this, it'll be largely because of your designs." The praise felt good, validation for all the sleepless nights and endless revisions. But as she drove home, Joanna realized what she was most excited about wasn't the proposal or the potential contract. It was tomorrow. It was seeing Marcus again. Saturday morning, she slept in for the first time in weeks, waking naturally around 9 to sunlight streaming through her windows. She had the entire day to herself before the evening's date, a luxury she hadn't enjoyed in far too long. Her phone rang while she was making coffee. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen. "Please tell me you're calling to chat, and not because there's some family emergency," Joanna said by way of greeting. "No emergency. I'm calling because Mom told me you have a date tonight with Marcus Donovan, and I need all the details immediately." "How does your mother even know that?" "I didn't tell anyone." Aunt Patricia talked to Grandma Leaner, who apparently talks to Marcus's grandmother regularly, who mentioned that her grandson asked about you, and boom. Family grapevine activated. Joanna groaned. "This is why I don't date. Everyone gets involved." "Are you kidding? This is the best part. The whole family is invested in your love life now. Aunt Linda is already imagining your wedding. She suggested a spring ceremony. We've had one conversation and exchanged a few texts. Can we maybe slow down the wedding planning?" Rebecca laughed. "This is the Gallagher family. We don't do slow." "But seriously, Joe, I'm happy for you. Marcus seems like a really good guy, and he's gorgeous, which doesn't hurt." "He is pretty attractive," Joanna admitted. "Pretty attractive. The man looks like he stepped out of a magazine. Those eyes alone could melt steel." "You're married, Becca." "Married, not blind. Just saying you did well. Where's he taking you?" "I don't actually know. He just said dinner and to dress nice." "Ooh, mysterious. I like it. You need to call me tomorrow and tell me everything." They talked for another 20 minutes, with Rebecca offering unsolicited fashion advice, and Joanna pretending to be annoyed while secretly appreciating her cousin's enthusiasm. After they hung up, Joanna found herself actually looking forward to getting ready, to the ritual of picking out the right outfit and doing her makeup with care. She chose a deep green dress that brought out her eyes, simple but elegant. Her hair cooperated for once, falling in soft waves past her shoulders. When she looked in the mirror at 6:30, she barely recognized herself. She looked happy, excited, young in a way she hadn't felt in years. Marcus arrived exactly at 7, and when Joanna opened her door, she had to remind herself to breathe. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie, the top button of his shirt undone, striking the perfect balance between formal and relaxed. His hair was styled but still had that slightly messy quality that she found unfairly attractive. "Wow," he said, looking at her with obvious appreciation. "You look incredible. You clean up pretty well yourself. Ready to go?" He drove a surprisingly modest car, a sleek but not ostentatious sedan, and held the door open for her with an old-fashioned courtesy that charmed her. They drove through the city as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Are you going to tell me where we're going?" Joanna asked. There's a restaurant on the waterfront. Best seafood in the state, or so I'm told. I haven't actually been there before, but a friend recommended it. I figured first date should be somewhere special. No pressure then. Are you nervous? A little. Are you? Terrified, he admitted. I haven't been on a real date in over a year. Work has been all-consuming. What made you decide to start dating again? He glanced at her, then back at the road. Honestly, running into you. Sometimes you meet someone and realize what you've been missing. That you've been so focused on building something that you forgot to actually live. The restaurant was beautiful, perched on a pier with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the water. Their table overlooked the marina, boats bobbing gently in their slips as evening deepened into night. Marcus had made reservations, and the host seated them immediately, treating him with the subtle deference reserved for regular customers or very generous tippers. "This is amazing," Joanna said, taking in the elegant decor and soft lighting. "Wait until you try the food." They ordered wine and appetizers, falling into conversation as easily as they had at the party. Marcus asked about the library proposal, and Joanna found herself explaining her design philosophy, how she believed public spaces should be welcoming and inspiring, places where anyone could feel at home. "We tried to create different zones," she explained, using her hands to illustrate. Quiet study areas, collaborative spaces, a children's section that's fun and engaging. The exterior is modern but not intimidating, with lots of glass to make it feel open and accessible. "When will you know if you got the contract?" "A few weeks. Maybe a month. The city council has to review all the proposals and vote. It's nerve-wracking." "I think you'll get it. The way you talk about your work, there's passion there. That comes through in the final product." Their main courses arrived, and Joanna had to admit Marcus's friend had been right. The food was exceptional. They shared bites of each other's meals, comparing flavors and laughing when they disagreed about which was better. "Tell me about Donovan Industries," Joanna said, spearing a piece of perfectly cooked fish. "What exactly do you manufacture?" "Industrial pumps, valves, filtration systems. Components for water treatment plants, factories, agricultural operations. Not glamorous, but essential. Every time you turn on a faucet or flush a toilet, there's a good chance our equipment is involved somewhere in the process." "How did you end up running the company so young?" His expression shifted, becoming more serious. "My father died when I was 24. Heart attack. Completely unexpected. The company was struggling at the time, bad investments, outdated equipment, a board of directors that couldn't agree on anything. My mother wanted to sell, get out from under the debt and the stress. But it was my grandfather's company originally. 3 generations of Donovans had built it. I couldn't let it go without at least trying to save it. That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was. I had just finished my MBA and thought I knew everything. Turns out, business school doesn't really prepare you for the reality of being responsible for people's livelihoods. I made a lot of mistakes that first year, but I learned, adapted, brought in new management, invested in technology, diversified our product line. It took 5 years, but we turned it around." "That's impressive. Really impressive." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I had help. Good people around me, and I was lucky. Timing, market conditions, a lot of things had to go right. Don't downplay what you did. Taking over a failing company in your 20s and turning it into a billion-dollar enterprise. That's not luck. That's skill and determination." "Speaking from experience," he raised an eyebrow. "Your father mentioned you graduated top of your class, had offers from major firms in New York and Chicago, but chose to stay here and work for a small company instead. That's its own kind of impressive. Dad talks too much. He's proud of you." "As he should be." Joanna swirled her wine, considering how much to share. The big firms wanted me because I was talented, but they also wanted me to be a certain kind of architect. Traditional, safe. I wanted to push boundaries, try new things. Gerald's firm is small, but he gives his architects creative freedom. I'd rather design buildings I'm proud of than make twice the salary doing cookie-cutter work. We're similar then, choosing passion over profit, says the billionaire. Marcus laughed. Fair point. But I didn't set out to be wealthy. I just wanted to save the company, honor my father's memory. The money was a byproduct, not the goal. They talked through dessert and coffee, losing track of time as the restaurant gradually emptied around them. Joanna learned that Marcus played piano, poorly by his own admission, and that he had a younger sister who was a veterinarian in California. He learned that Joanna was terrified of spiders but loved camping, and that she had once considered becoming a painter before discovering architecture offered a better blend of art and practicality. I should probably get you home, Marcus said reluctantly when the waiter brought the check for the third time. Even though I don't want this to end. It doesn't have to. We could go for a walk. There's a park near my apartment with a path along the river. I'd like that. They drove to Joanna's neighborhood and parked near the entrance to Riverside Park. The path was well lit and safe, populated even at this hour with joggers and couples walking hand in hand. Marcus offered his arm, and Joanna took it, enjoying the simple pleasure of physical contact. I have a confession, Marcus said as they walked. I asked your grandmother about you before I got to the party last week. You did. My grandmother mentioned the Gallagher birthday celebration, and when I said I might stop by, she told me Alina's granddaughter was around my age and single. She was not subtle about her matchmaking intentions, so I asked a few questions. Like what? If you were as smart as Dorothy claimed, if you were single by choice or circumstance, what you liked to do for fun. Alina was more than happy to provide detailed answers. Joanna groaned. This is mortifying. Don't be embarrassed. I'm glad I asked. Otherwise, I might have chickened out when I saw you in that parking lot. You were this beautiful, soaking wet woman holding a birthday cake, and I almost convinced myself to just nod politely and keep walking. What changed your mind? You looked at me and smiled. This real, genuine smile, even though you were drenched and obviously stressed. Something about that smile made me think, this is someone worth knowing. They had stopped walking, standing now in a pool of lamplight with the sound of the river flowing beside them. Joanna's heart was pounding so hard she was certain Marcus could hear it. I'm really glad you didn't keep walking, she said softly. Me too. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't want to. When his lips met hers, it was gentle and perfect, a first kiss that felt both thrilling and somehow inevitable, like they had been moving toward this moment since that collision in the rain. When they finally broke apart, Joanna was breathless. Marcus rested his forehead against hers, his hands cupped around her face. I know it's too soon to say this, he murmured, but I think I'm falling for you, Joanna Gallagher. That's crazy. We barely know each other. I know, doesn't make it less true. She should have been scared. Every rational part of her brain was screaming that this was too fast, too intense. But standing there in the lamplight with Marcus's arms around her, all she felt was certainty. I think I'm falling for you too, she whispered. They kissed again, longer this time, and Joanna felt something click into place inside her chest, like a door opening onto a future she hadn't known she wanted. The next few weeks passed in a blur of dates and phone calls and stolen moments between their demanding careers. Marcus took her sailing on the lake, and Joanna discovered she loved it, the freedom of being out on the water with nothing but wind and waves. She took him to an architecture exhibit downtown, and he surprised her by actually engaging with the material, asking thoughtful questions about design principles and spatial dynamics. They fell into a rhythm. Marcus would call during his lunch break, and they would talk about their days. Joanna would send him photos of interesting buildings she encountered, and he would respond with terrible puns about architecture that made her groan and laugh simultaneously. Her family watched the relationship develop with barely concealed glee. Rebecca called weekly for updates. Patricia invited them both to dinner, along with what seemed like half the Gallagher clan. Even Gerald noticed, commenting that Joanna seemed happier, more relaxed despite their demanding workload. "Whatever you are doing differently, keep doing it," her boss told her. "It's good for you." The library proposal results came back on a Thursday afternoon. Joanna was in a meeting when Gerald burst in, face flushed with excitement. "We got it! The library contract! We got it!" The office erupted in celebration. They had beaten out 3 larger, more established firms. The city council had praised Joanna's design specifically, calling it innovative and community-focused. It was the biggest win of her career, validation that choosing the harder path had been worth it. She called Marcus immediately. "We got the library," she practically shouted when he answered. "Joanna, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." "I can't believe it. Gerald is already talking about hiring more staff, taking on bigger projects. This could change everything for the firm." "You deserve this. Every bit of it. We should celebrate. I'll take you anywhere you want to go. Paris, London, Tokyo, name it. How about your place? I want to celebrate with you, not with a bunch of strangers in some fancy restaurant." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I want to be somewhere private, just us. Is that okay?" "More than okay." "I'll cook. Come over around 7. She had been to Marcus's house once before, briefly, when they had stopped to pick up his sailing gear. It was a beautiful property about 30 minutes outside the city, a modern design with clean lines and expansive windows overlooking a private lake. The kind of house Joanna would have loved to design herself. When she arrived that evening carrying a bottle of champagne, Marcus greeted her at the door with a kiss that made her toes curl. "Congratulations," he said against her lips. "You brilliant, talented woman." The house smelled amazing, some combination of garlic and herbs that made her stomach growl. Marcus led her to the kitchen where he had clearly been working hard. Pasta sauce simmered on the stove, and a salad sat ready on the counter. "You really did cook," Joanna said, impressed. "I told you I would. I'm not a chef, but I can manage a few dishes. Sit, relax. You've earned it." They ate on his back patio, watching the sun set over the lake. The champagne was cold and crisp, perfect for celebrating. Joanna felt the stress of the past weeks melting away, replaced by a contentment she had never experienced before. "I have something for you," Marcus said after they finished eating. He disappeared into the house and returned with a flat package wrapped in brown paper. Joanna opened it carefully and found herself holding a framed vintage postcard. This one was dated 1947 and featured a stunning library building in New York, all Art Deco elegance and grand staircases. "For your first major project," Marcus explained. "A library for a library." Tears pricked at Joanna's eyes. "You're going to make me cry. Happy tears, I hope." "The happiest." She set the frame aside carefully and moved closer to him. "Thank you for this, for tonight, for everything. You've made the last few weeks the best of my life." "Right back at you." They kissed, and this time it was different. More urgent, more intense. Marcus's hands tangled in her hair and Joanna pressed closer, wanting to eliminate every inch of space between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the question hung unspoken in the air. "Stay," Marcus said quietly. "Stay tonight. I know it's soon, but I don't want you to leave." "I don't want to leave either," He led her inside, up the stairs to his bedroom. What followed was tender and passionate, both of them learning each other's bodies, discovering what brought pleasure and sighs. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Joanna's head on Marcus's chest, listening to his heartbeat steady into a slower rhythm. "I love you," Marcus said into the darkness. "I know it's fast, but I love you, Joanna." She lifted her head to look at him, seeing nothing but sincerity in his eyes. "I love you too. I've been wanting to say it for days, but was too scared." "Scared of what?" "That it was too soon. That you wouldn't feel the same way. That this was all too good to be true and would disappear if I said it out loud." He pulled her closer. "It's not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. This is real, Joanna. As real as anything I've ever felt." She believed him. Against all logic and caution, she believed him completely. The months that followed were blissful. Joanna threw herself into the library project, working closely with the city council to finalize plans and begin construction. Marcus supported her completely, attending planning meetings when his schedule allowed and always asking about progress. His business required travel, trips to factories and client meetings across the country. Joanna went with him when she could, turning business trips into mini vacations. They spent a weekend in Seattle, where Marcus had meetings with a tech company interested in partnering on water filtration systems. They explored the city together, visiting Pike Place Market and taking a ferry to Bainbridge Island. In Boston, where Marcus was negotiating a new contract, they walked the Freedom Trail and ate seafood in the North End. Joanna sketched buildings in her notebook while Marcus read through contract proposals, both of them content to simply be in each other's presence. Back home, they integrated their lives gradually. Joanna kept clothes at Marcus's house. He had a key to her apartment. They met each other's friends, attended events together, became a unit in the way that couples do when they are serious and committed. Eleanor watched it all with obvious satisfaction. At Sunday dinners, which Joanna and Marcus attended together now, her grandmother would catch her eye and wink, as if to say, "I told you so." "She's very pleased with herself," Joanna observed one evening after dinner. They were driving back to Marcus's house, full of pot roast and Patricia's famous apple pie. She should be. This was entirely her scheme. Well, hers and my grandmother's. They set us up, absolutely. Dorothy admitted it last month. Apparently they've been planning this for a year, trying to figure out how to get us in the same place at the same time. Your grandmother's birthday party was the perfect opportunity. Joanna laughed. We were doomed from the start, never stood a chance against their matchmaking powers. I'm not complaining. Arranged marriages have nothing on grandmother-engineered relationships. Is that what this is? A relationship? Marcus pulled into his driveway and turned to face her. I hope it's more than that. I hope it's forever. Her breath caught. Marcus, I'm not proposing. Not yet. I want to do it right with a ring and a plan and everything you deserve. But I want you to know my intentions. I want to marry you, Joanna. I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. I want that too, so much. Then we're on the same page. They got out of the car and walked into the house hand in hand. The future stretched out before them, full of possibility and promise. 6 months after that first meeting in the rain, the library project was well underway. The foundation had been poured and the steel framework was going up. Joanna visited the site weekly, watching her design transform from drawings into reality. It was thrilling and terrifying, seeing something she had created taking physical shape. Marcus came with her one Saturday morning, both of them wearing hard hats as they walked through the construction site. The foreman explained the progress, pointing out features that Joanna had designed: the soaring entrance hall, the reading room with its wall of windows, the children's area that would have interactive displays. "This is amazing," Marcus said, looking up at the steel beams stretching overhead. "You did this. You created something that will serve the community for generations. It's surreal. I keep thinking I'll wake up and find out it was all a dream. It's real. You're real. We're real." He squeezed her hand. "And I have a surprise for you." "What kind of surprise?" "The kind that requires a road trip. Tomorrow, if you're free, we'd leave early, be gone most of the day." "Where are we going?" "That's the surprise part. Wear comfortable shoes and bring a jacket. That's all I'm saying." Joanna agreed, curiosity piqued. The next morning, Marcus picked her up at 6, 2 travel mugs of coffee in his car's cup holders. They drove north, leaving the city behind, heading into the countryside as the sun rose. "Still not going to tell me where we're going?" Joanna asked after an hour. "Nope. But we're about halfway there." They drove through small towns and farmland, the landscape gradually becoming more wooded. Finally, after nearly 2 hours, Marcus turned onto a private road marked only by a small wooden sign, "Lakeside Retreat." The road wound through trees before opening onto a breathtaking view. A lake stretched out before them, crystal clear water surrounded by forest. On a small rise overlooking the water sat a cabin. No, not a cabin, Joanna realized as they got closer. A house. A beautiful, modern house with enormous windows and a wraparound deck. Marcus parked and turned off the engine. "What do you think?" "It's gorgeous." "What is this place?" It was a retreat center, but the owners retired and put it up for sale. 20 acres, private lake access, completely secluded. "I put in an offer last week." Joanna's heart started pounding. "You bought a house?" "Not yet. The offer was contingent on you seeing it and approving." He got out of the car and came around to open her door. "Come on, let me show you." The house was even more spectacular inside. Open floor plan, high ceilings, natural light flooding every room. The kitchen was massive, perfect for entertaining. The master bedroom had a view of the lake that took Joanna's breath away. "There are 3 other bedrooms," Marcus explained as they walked through. "Plenty of space for guests. Or—" he paused, looking suddenly nervous. "Or for a family someday, if that's something you want." "Marcus, this is incredible, but why? You already have a beautiful house." "That's my house. I want this to be our house. Somewhere we can escape to on weekends, where we can build memories together. I know we haven't talked about moving in together officially, and I'm not pressuring you. But I wanted you to see it, to know that I'm thinking about our future, that I'm planning for it." Joanna walked to the window, looking out at the lake. She could picture it so clearly: summer weekends spent swimming and grilling on the deck, winter evenings by the fireplace, lazy mornings drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. She could see their life here, full and happy and real. "Yes," she said, turning to face him. "Yes to what exactly?" "Yes to the house. Yes to building memories. Yes to planning a future together." She crossed the room to him. "Yes to all of it." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I love you so much. I love you too." They spent the rest of the day exploring the property, walking along the lakeshore and planning where they would put a dock, what trees they might clear for better views. Marcus called his realtor and accepted the offer formally. The house would be theirs within a month. As they drove home that evening, Joanna felt a profound sense of rightness. Everything was falling into place in a way she never could have planned or predicted. The career she had worked so hard for was taking off. The man she loved was committed and constant. The family that had always supported her was over the moon about her happiness. Spring turned to summer, and the library construction continued on schedule. The lake house became their weekend sanctuary, a place where they could disconnect from their demanding careers and just be together. They furnished it slowly, choosing each piece carefully, making every decision jointly. Eleanor's health began to decline that summer. Nothing dramatic, just the inevitable slide that comes with age. She moved into assisted living, a nice facility where she had her own apartment but access to medical care when needed. Joanna visited twice a week, often bringing Marcus along. "You remind me of my Richard," Eleanor told Marcus one afternoon. They sat in her small living room drinking tea that Joanna had made. "He was solid like you, present. So many young men these days are scattered, always looking at their phones or thinking about the next thing. You're here in the moment. That's a rare quality." "Thank you, Mrs. Gallagher. That means a lot. You take care of my granddaughter. She's special." "I know she is. I plan to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of her." Eleanor smiled, patting his hand. "I think you already have." That evening, as they left the facility, Marcus was quiet. Joanna glanced at him as they walked to the car. "You okay?" "I need to ask you something. Can we go to the park? The one where we had our first kiss?" They drove to Riverside Park and walked to the spot where everything had changed between them. The same lamppost cast its glow, and the river flowed steadily beside them, constant and eternal. Marcus took both of Joanna's hands in his. "I had a whole plan for this. I was going to wait until the lake house was fully furnished, do something elaborate and romantic. But seeing your grandmother today, being reminded that time is precious and finite, I don't want to wait any more." He let go of her hands and dropped to one knee. Joanna's heart stopped. "Joanna Gallagher, you are the most brilliant, beautiful, incredible person I have ever met. You make me better. You make me want to be better. I can't imagine my life without you in it, and I don't want to try. Will you marry me?" He pulled out a ring box and opened it. Inside was a stunning emerald-cut diamond, simple and elegant, exactly what Joanna would have chosen for herself if asked. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, like everything else about them. He stood and kissed her, and Joanna felt like her heart might burst from happiness. "I love you," she said between kisses. "I love you so much. I love you too. I can't wait to marry you." They called family from the park, starting with their grandmothers. Eleanor cried happy tears. She insisted and demanded to see the ring in person immediately. Dorothy was equally emotional, telling Marcus she was proud of him and that Joanna was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Rebecca screamed so loudly when Joanna called that several joggers stopped to make sure everything was okay. Patricia immediately started planning the wedding, listing venues and color schemes before Joanna could even confirm that yes, she would like help with the planning. The Gallagher family grapevine worked its magic, and within hours, everyone knew. Joanna's phone buzzed constantly with congratulations and well wishes. Marcus's sister called from California, thrilled to finally have the sister she had always wanted. They went back to Eleanor's facility that night, unable to wait until morning. Her grandmother held Joanna's hand, examining the ring with misty eyes. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. You found your person." "We found each other," Joanna corrected, "with some help from matchmaking grandmothers." Eleanor laughed. "Dorothy and I are taking full credit. That boy needed a good woman, and you needed someone who would appreciate you fully. Perfect match." "The best match," Marcus agreed, his arm around Joanna's shoulders. They decided on an October wedding, giving them 4 months to plan, but not so long that the anticipation would drive them crazy. Patricia took charge of logistics with Joanna's blessing, coordinating with vendors and venues, while Joanna focused on finishing the library project and managing her expanding workload at the firm. Gerald promoted her to senior architect, acknowledging her role in landing the library contract and bringing in several new clients who had been impressed by her work. The promotion came with a significant raise and more creative control over projects. Everything Joanna had worked for was coming to fruition. Marcus, meanwhile, was negotiating a major expansion for Donovan Industries. A European manufacturer wanted to partner with them, which would mean opening offices overseas and significantly growing the company. It was exciting and daunting, requiring months of planning and legal work. "We're going to be okay," Marcus assured Joanna one night at the lake house. They sat on the deck, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. "I know it's a lot, with your promotion and my expansion and the wedding planning. But we can handle it. Together," Joanna said, "always together." The summer flew by in a whirlwind of activity. The library's exterior was complete and work moved inside. Joanna spent hours on site, ensuring every detail matched her vision. She chose light fixtures and floor materials, approved paint colors and furniture layouts. Seeing it come together was like watching a dream materialize. August brought Marcus's 33rd birthday, which they celebrated with a small party at the lake house. His sister Lauren flew in from California, along with several of his business associates and friends. The Gallagher clan showed up in force, of course, and the two families mingled easily, bonding over their shared affection for the couple. "I can't believe my brother is getting married," Lauren said, helping Joanna set out food in the kitchen. "I honestly thought he would be married to his work forever. You changed everything." "He changed things for me too. I was heading down the same path, all work and no life. We balance each other out. You're perfect for him. I've never seen him this happy." The party lasted into the night, with people swimming in the lake and sitting around the fire pit Marcus had installed. It felt like a preview of their wedding. Everyone they loved gathered together in celebration. September arrived with cooler temperatures and the beginning of fall colors. Wedding preparations intensified. Joanna chose her dress with Rebecca and Patricia, a flowing lace gown that was romantic without being overly traditional. Marcus rented his tux and selected his groomsmen his best friend from college, his cousin, and Joanna's brother, a gesture that made her cry when he told her. The library was scheduled to open in November, just after the wedding. The timing was tight, but Joanna was determined to see the project through before she and Marcus left for their honeymoon in Italy. They planned 2 weeks abroad, starting in Rome and making their way north through Tuscany and Venice, with a final stop in Milan. "You're going to love Italy," Marcus told her. They were addressing wedding invitations at his house, a tedious task made bearable by wine and music. "The architecture alone will blow your mind. I can't wait. 2 weeks of just us, no work, no obligations. It sounds like a dream. It's real, just like everything else we've built together." The wedding was set for October 20th at a historic mansion on the edge of the city. The venue had gardens that would hopefully still have some color, and a ballroom perfect for dinner and dancing. Patricia had outdone herself with the planning, coordinating everything from flowers to the menu to the string quartet that would play during the ceremony. Alina's health had stabilized, and she insisted she would be there, even if they had to wheel her in. "I'm not missing my favorite granddaughter's wedding," she declared. "Dorothy and I have been planning this since you two met. We're seeing it through to the end." The week before the wedding, Joanna moved the last of her things to Marcus's house. Her apartment had served her well, but it was time to let it go. They were going to live at Marcus's place during the week and spend weekends at the lake house, a balance that gave them space in the city and escape in the country. "Last box," Marcus said, carrying it up the stairs to what was now officially their bedroom. "You're fully moved in. No backing out now." "Like I would want to," Joanna replied, arranging her books on the shelf they had designated as hers. "You're stuck with me, Donovan. Best news I've heard all day." The wedding day arrived with perfect October weather, crisp and clear, with a brilliant blue sky. Joanna woke up at the lake house, where she had spent the night with Rebecca and Lauren in a girls-only pre-wedding celebration. Marcus had stayed at his house with his groomsmen, respecting the tradition of not seeing the bride before the ceremony. Patricia arrived early with hair and makeup artists, transforming the lake house into a prep salon. Joanna sat still while professionals worked their magic, making her look like the most polished version of herself. The dress fit perfectly, and when she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the elegant woman staring back. "You're stunning," Rebecca said, tears already forming. "Marcus is going to lose his mind when he sees you. Don't make me cry. It'll ruin the makeup." Eleanor arrived an hour before the ceremony, looking frail but determined in a lavender dress. She held Joanna's face in her hands, studying her carefully. "You look just like I did on my wedding day," she said softly. "So full of hope and love. Hold on to that feeling, sweetheart. On the hard days, remember how you feel right now." "I will, Grandma. I promise." The ceremony itself passed in a blur of emotion and joy. Joanna walked down the aisle on her father's arm, seeing Marcus waiting at the altar looking devastatingly handsome in his tux. His eyes met hers, and the rest of the world fell away. They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Marcus promised to support her dreams, to be her partner in all things, to love her with his whole heart for the rest of his life. Joanna promised to stand by him, to build a life full of adventure and joy, to choose him every day no matter what challenges came. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed her like they were the only two people in existence. The guests erupted in applause, but Joanna barely heard it over the sound of her own heart beating in perfect time with his. The reception was everything they had hoped for: delicious food, heartfelt toasts, dancing that lasted into the night. Eleanor and Dorothy sat together at a place of honor, looking immensely satisfied with themselves. Everyone who mattered was there, celebrating a love that had started with a collision in the rain and grown into something beautiful and permanent. "Happy?" Marcus asked as they danced to their song, wrapped in each other's arms. "Beyond happy. This is the best day of my life. Just the first of many. We've got decades ahead of us, Joanna Donovan." She smiled at the sound of her new name. "I like how that sounds. I love how it sounds. I love you." "I love you too. Always." They left for Italy 2 days later, spending their honeymoon exploring ancient cities and eating incredible food and making love in beautiful hotels. They walked through the Colosseum and threw coins in the Trevi Fountain. They toured the Uffizi Gallery in Florence and took a gondola ride in Venice. Every moment was perfect because they were together. When they returned home, tanned and relaxed and even more in love, reality set in quickly. The library was opening in a week, and Marcus's European expansion was moving forward rapidly. They threw themselves into work, but always made time for each other: dinner together every night, weekends at the lake house, small moments of connection in the midst of busy days. The library's grand opening was a huge success. The mayor spoke at the ribbon cutting, praising the design and thanking everyone involved. Joanna watched as families streamed through the doors she had designed, children running to the bright, colorful areas she had created just for them. It was gratifying in a way that no amount of praise or recognition could match. "You did good," Marcus whispered in her ear as they watched a little girl discover the reading nook Joanna had built into the children's section. "We did good," she corrected. "You supported me through all of this. I couldn't have done it without you. Team effort. That's what marriage is, right?" "Right." That first year of marriage was blissful chaos. They traveled for Marcus's business, visiting factories and meeting with partners. They worked on their house at the lake, adding personal touches that made it truly theirs. They attended family gatherings and hosted dinner parties, and slowly built a life that felt rich and full. Eleanor passed away peacefully in her sleep on a cold January night, 2 months after their wedding. The funeral was huge, testament to how many lives she had touched. Joanna spoke at the service, talking about her grandmother's wisdom and kindness, how she had always known that family was the most important thing. "She lived to see me marry Marcus," Joanna said through tears. "She told me at the wedding that she could go happy, knowing I had found my person. I'm grateful for that, grateful she got to see us start our life together." Marcus held her hand through the service and the reception after, a steady presence during the hardest day she had faced in years. That night at the lake house where they had retreated to grieve in private, he held her while she cried. "She loved you so much," Marcus said, "and she was so proud of you. I know. That makes it hurt more and less at the same time. She'll always be with you. In your work, in the way you see the world, in the love you give to others. That's her legacy." Joanna held onto those words in the weeks that followed, as grief gradually became something she could carry rather than something that overwhelmed her. Work helped, a new project for an arts center that demanded her full attention and creativity. Marcus was there every step of the way, checking in, making sure she was eating and sleeping and taking care of herself. Spring came early that year, bringing new growth and renewal. Joanna turned 29 in April, and Marcus planned a surprise party at the lake house with all their friends and family. It was exactly what she needed: laughter and love, reminders that life continued even after loss. That summer, they celebrated their first wedding anniversary with a quiet dinner at the restaurant where they had their first date. So much had changed in a year, and yet the fundamental truth remained the same. They loved each other, completely and without reservation. "To us," Marcus said, raising his glass, "to surviving year one and all the years to come." "To us," Joanna echoed, "and to unexpected collisions in the rain, best accident of my life." They talked about the future that night, about dreams and plans. Marcus wanted to eventually step back from the day-to-day operations of Donovan Industries, bring in more management so he could travel less. Joanna wanted to start her own firm someday, have complete creative control over projects she was passionate about, and they both wanted children. Not immediately, but soon. A family to fill the lake house with noise and laughter, to carry on the legacies of the grandmothers who had brought them together. "How many kids are we thinking?" Marcus asked, only half joking. 2, maybe 3. "Enough to fill those bedrooms upstairs, but not so many that we lose our minds." Sounds perfect. Although with our genetics, they're going to be brilliant and stubborn and absolutely exhausting. We can handle it. We can handle anything together. 2 years after their wedding, Joanna discovered she was pregnant. She told Marcus on a Sunday morning at the lake house, handing him a small wrapped box while they drank coffee on the deck. "What's this?" he asked, confused. It wasn't his birthday or any occasion he could think of. "Just open it." Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes and a positive pregnancy test. Marcus stared at the contents for a long moment before looking up at her, eyes wide with shock and joy. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby. Due in March." He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I love you. God, I love you so much. I love you too." The pregnancy was smooth, and Joanna worked right up until her due date on the Arts Center project and several smaller commissions. Marcus was attentive to the point of being slightly overbearing, constantly worried about her health and comfort. She found it endearing even when it was annoying. Their daughter was born on a snowy March evening, arriving 3 days before her due date. They named her Eleanor Dorothy Donovan, honoring both grandmothers who had engineered their meeting. Ellie, as they called her, had Marcus's blue eyes and Joanna's determination, apparently inherited at birth based on how loud she could cry when she wanted something. Parenthood was harder than anything Joanna had ever done, but also more rewarding. Watching Marcus with their daughter, seeing him transform into a devoted father, made her fall in love with him all over again. They were exhausted and overwhelmed and happier than they had ever been. Joanna went back to work part-time when Ellie was 3 months old, an arrangement Gerald supported completely. She brought her daughter to the office occasionally, introducing her to the world of architecture, even though Ellie was far more interested in chewing on blueprints than understanding them. When Ellie was 18 months old, Joanna discovered she was pregnant again. This time it was twin boys, a surprise that sent both her and Marcus into a brief panic before excitement took over. 3 kids under 3, Marcus said, doing the math. We're insane. Completely insane, Joanna agreed, but we've got this. Do we, though? We'd better. They're coming whether we're ready or not. The twins, Michael and Daniel, arrived healthy and hungry in the fall. The lake house, once their peaceful retreat, became command central for managing 3 small children. They hired help a nanny who came during the day, and cleaners who kept their house from descending into complete chaos. Through it all, they held on to each other. Date nights became sacred, even if they were just dinner at home after the kids were asleep. They stole moments of connection in the midst of diaper changes and feedings and the beautiful exhaustion of raising young children. 5 years after their wedding, Gerald retired and offered to sell the firm to Joanna. It was an opportunity she had been working toward, a chance to truly make her mark. Marcus encouraged her without hesitation, even though it meant more responsibility and longer hours. Gallagher Design became her baby, in addition to her 3 actual babies. She hired talented young architects, gave them the creative freedom Gerald had given her, and watched the firm grow. They took on ambitious projects: a performing arts center, an innovative school design, a mixed-use development that combined residential and commercial space in a completely new way. Marcus finally stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Donovan Industries when he turned 40, bringing in a CEO to handle the boring stuff while he focused on strategy and big-picture decisions. It gave him more time at home, more time to be present for Ellie's dance recitals and the twins' soccer games. They added on to the lake house, building a studio where Joanna could work remotely and a workshop where Marcus could tinker with boat engines and other mechanical projects. The house became truly theirs, filled with the chaos and joy of family life. 10 years after that first meeting in the rain, they celebrated their anniversary with a party at the lake house. Family and friends gathered, many of the same people who had attended their wedding, now a decade older and watching their own children play with Ellie and the twins. Patricia, grayer but still organizing everything, had prepared a slideshow of photos from the past decade. Joanna and Marcus watched it together, seeing their life unfold in images: their wedding, holidays, the births of their children, countless moments of ordinary happiness. "Look at us," Joanna said, pointing to a photo from early in their relationship. "We look so young. We were young and stupid." Falling in love after one conversation. "Best stupid decision I ever made." "Mine too." As the party wound down and the kids fell asleep in various beds throughout the house, Joanna and Marcus found themselves on the deck, just like that first night when everything had changed. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't met?" Joanna asked. "Sometimes. I'd probably still be working 16-hour days, married to my job, wondering why I felt so empty. You? Same. Successful but alone. I had convinced myself that was enough, that I didn't need more. And then you crashed into me in a parking lot and changed everything. Technically, you crashed into me. Details. She leaned against him, comfortable and content. I love our life, Marcus. Everything we've built together. Me too. Though I have to say, I'm looking forward to the kids getting a little older. Maybe sleeping past 6 in the morning occasionally. Dream big, he laughed, the sound echoing across the quiet lake. I have everything I dreamed of. A woman I love, a family, meaningful work. What more could I ask for? World peace, an end to hunger, besides the obvious. Then yeah, I'd say we've done pretty well for ourselves. They stood there in the starlight, wrapped in each other and in the life they had created. The journey that started with a collision in the rain had led them here, to this moment of perfect contentment. They had weathered storms and celebrated victories, built a family and careers they were proud of, all while holding tight to the love that made everything else possible. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully. All around them, the forest breathed quietly in the night. And somewhere above, Joanna liked to think, 2 grandmothers looked down and smiled at their handiwork, at the love story they had engineered with determination and hope. It was, Joanna thought as Marcus kissed her temple, exactly the happy ending she had never known she was looking for. Not an ending at all, really, but a beginning that kept unfolding, year after year, in ways that surprised and delighted her. And she knew, with the same certainty she had felt standing in that lamplight 10 years ago, that the best was yet to come.